Sly Spy.
This is Sly Spy, a game developed and published by Data East in 1989. Back in the day, I'd see this thing kicking around local arcades sometimes, and well, I've never been a big fan of it. Sly Spy is basically a Bond game set in the US. Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing here. Basically, Sly Spy plays a lot like Bad Dudes with a similar premise. The president is in peril, maybe even dead. We get a shot of him and the first lady waving at a crowd before terrorists rain down. No cheeseburgers today, Mr. President. So, that's where you come in. You're known simply as Sly, and you're a spy, with the option to choose your own code number. But let's be honest, you're gonna pick 007, because that's exactly what this game is. An unofficial James Bond arcade romp. I mean, just look at this thing. We've got popular 007 baddies in store brand form throughout. Jaws, Odd Job, this thing, Jaws, that jetpack, Moonraker. Data East weren't exactly trying to hide anything here. Sly Spy starts off promising enough with a skydiving action sequence that plays very well. So far so good, right? Well, yeah, I suppose, but things quickly turn hectic and unfair shortly thereafter. Full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Bad Dudes and a lot of Data East arcade games, but Sly Spy is just too unfair. First of all, you can only shoot left and right, which is fine for some games, but enemies fly at you from every direction, and it's way too easy to get overwhelmed. Yes, you can jump and you can duck, but I can't help but feel that this game would have benefited greatly with the option to shoot vertically. What's odd is that the game allows you to fire horizontally upwards in this bike stage, but nowhere else, which is annoying. Also, a minor nitpick here, but how in the hell are you supposed to know that this one and only mine is on the ground here? It's going to get you on your first try because it's the only one in the game, and it comes so fast. Just like me. It's just cheap. Shooting upwards in any capacity would have helped the game a lot. Either that, or they could have scaled the amount of enemies back a bit. It would be one thing if they approached you on one or two planes, but they don't. They're everywhere, and by the end of the game, you'll need godlike skills or a satchel full of quarters to successfully see the end credits. There are tons of blind jumps too, which contribute to the unapologetically cheap structure of the game. The enemies themselves aren't all that challenging. They basically just swarm and ram into you with reckless abandon. The bosses aren't a threat either. They're piss easy, with patterns that won't take more than one playthrough to master. Personally, I only find the tigers to be a bit of a threat since there's not a whole lot of room to avoid their attacks. The rest are a cakewalk, including the final boss, who is just a joke. Normally I don't like to spoil the ending when I review games, but I'm going to right now because I have a question to ask those of you who have played this. What does he mean when he states that I've missed a few things? Do I have to play through the game again similarly to the ghosts and ghouls and goblins and ghosts? Or is he making a joke? If he's saying that I missed all of these women, is that a gag? If so, it's confusing. Mr. President, I preferred your predecessor. At least that motherfucker knew how to eat his damn cheeseburger and keep his idiot mouth shut. Ammo is limited, but that's not too big of a deal considering you can just resort to kicking everything once you've bled it dry. And get this, booting the baddies actually seems to do more damage.
Come out. Great job.
You have a basic pistol, but there are a few other weapons to nab like machine guns and some G pieces dropped by enemies to assemble a golden gun. Yes, a golden gun. This thing is a beast, so picking up the G's is worthwhile. In a couple of the stages, it's possible to nab an underwater jetpack, a la Thunderball, but this thing only lasts until you get hit once, so like 4 seconds if you're as incompetent as me. Same goes for the other Connery era jetpack. There's just so much stuff on the screen. The controls are as spot on and tight as any other Data East arcade release from this era. What's nice is that there is a life bar, but health pickups in the form of sodas drop very infrequently. Personally, I can get through the entire game on 4 credits, which isn't too bad, but that's rare, and that's with a ton of practice. I'm not by any means calling this game bad, but I do find it cheap. I've witnessed people complete it on 1 credit, so it's doable, but it almost seems like Data East had a good concept, drew up some nice looking levels, and proceeded to dump bucket after bucket of baddies into the mix to bleed people out of their quarters. That might sound harsh or cynical, but as a big fan of arcade games, I feel like this one lacks in the tough but fair category. Azusa Hara and Hiroaki Yoshida have returned from Bad Dudes to compose the score here. Sadly, it's a little light on music as a whole, but what's here is decent. 5 out of the 8 playable stages share the same track, which feels a little lazy, and things either sit in a high or low register with very little happening in between, which results in something that sounds rather harsh. You'll recognize an homage to the spy genre here and there. Secret Agent, man. The 007 gun barrel theme. It's all competently arranged, but it's not a track list I'd listen to on its own. The sound effects are a mixed bag as well. All of the action bits have that loud, chunky arcade flair, but the quality is rather cheap sounding, with some pretty poor voice approximations to boot. Graphically, Sly Spy is a real looker, with lush, colorful backgrounds and detailed sprites. It's a fast-moving game, and everything really pops. There's a bit of stage variety, which was kind of a Data East staple at the time. Across the 9 stages, you'll get to free fall into a parachute drop a la The Spy Who Loved Me, with the American flag instead of the Union Jack, ride a motorcycle, and take to the ocean 007 Thunderball style. Twice! There's some variety, but the stages are really short and a bit unbalanced. Like, this second water sequence is nowhere near as challenging as the first one, and culminates with a boss battle against this thing. Yeah.
Great job.
I played an emulated version through MAME for this review, but Sly Spy is available under the Johnny Turbo's arcade moniker on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. Sly Spy also saw many ports at the time of its release, mainly to home computers, such as the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, and Atari ST, among a few others. Data East folded back in 2003, but a lot of their properties were purchased by other companies, hence the reason this, as well as many of their other arcade classics, have seen recent releases on modern consoles, as well as compilations throughout the years. Despite my interest in the Bond series and Data East games, Sly Spy has never been one of my personal favorites. That being said, I would still recommend it for fans of these types of games. It's fairly competently made, nice to look at, and a great way to waste 20 minutes or so. But I really wouldn't spend more than $4 or $5 on it, unless you're into attempting a 1-credit run or something. Next time on this channel, we'll be taking a look at Bad Dudes, both versions, because, well, I couldn't stop bringing it up in this one, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want.